Thank you for joining us this week on The Tongue with Dr. Myke. I'm so glad you're back with us again. Make sure, as always, visit our website, thetonguespeakslife.com. That's a center for everything associated with our missions. You access your recent podcasts from there, everything over the last few weeks, unless you go to wherever you're listening to podcasts and just look up The Tongue with Dr. Myke, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, whatever. Legionnaire is out there, legionnaire.com. It's Legionnaire, H-E-I-R. It's based on Romans 8:17, because we're heirs of God and co-heirs with Christ. That is up, and it is just more like a collection of various things that you can check out. Remember, you want to go to thetonguespeakslife.com, though, if you need a Bible. And now you can go to our Legion Arms shop on there. Go down to the shop. We have tons of awesome jewelry that's on there. Man, it's super stoked to have that stuff on there. There's new stuff going up all the time. The Bibles are free. We have free shipping on our stuff right now. I want to say what's up to Pastor Simon in Bushfire Church, Living Waters Ministries down in Sudan, South Sudan. Also check in with JB and his crew if you're here with Psalm 346 Ministries. If you're in the Lehigh Valley and you want to volunteer and you don't know how to get involved, check them out. He's always looking for volunteers. They're doing great things in the Lehigh Valley here. Cure International, I will always plug those people, because the difference they make in children's lives is unbelievable. And they're doing it, based on Luke 9:2, that says that Jesus sent them out to heal the sick and proclaim the kingdom of God. And that's exactly what they're doing through global pediatric surgical hospitals that serve children. There's a link on my website that you can donate right to them. If you want to donate to our foundation here, you can rest assured that every dollar that comes in goes out. And we're doing Bibles in Africa. We have, let me check the board, 203 Bibles left to go that need to be sent out. And that's where we're at. So thank you to our donors that are some of our angel donors, our other donations, our 65 monthly supporters, whatever. If you want to give $1 to here to support our Bibles going out or anything involved with our ministry, just go to thetonguespeakslife.com. And as our family keeps growing, I just want to say welcome back. Thank you to everyone. God bless everyone wherever you're listening to it. These podcasts are heard all over, and we make posts in different groups all over the world. We are seen by millions of people. Our presence is growing. Thank God for that. And, like I said before, I'm trying to get JB and my schedule to coordinate so we can host Pillars of Heaven once again. I am excited about that. There's, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a long list of topics that we can catch up on with that. This is, well, like I said before, we're living in the end times. This is a wake-up call for you. Some of you, this is, a first call, and to others, it's, wake up, man. The time is short, and talk to that friend, talk to that family member, get people talking. There's something happening on the inside of everybody right now, and the lines are being drawn. You're seeing it in society. You're seeing it in world politics. Evil is everywhere. But here we go. We have so much to talk about. I decided to focus in on the temple and the red heifers again, just to wrap that up one last time. And let's just get into it. So for about 10 years, the Temple Institute has been engaged in these preparations for producing the ashes of the red heifer, right, from educational and a practical perspective. The observance of these commandments, the raising of the red heifer according to the Torah law, and the production of the kosher ashes for purification and to make sure that ritual is pure. It's very complex, and it includes thousands of details, and it requires a great amount of knowledge and skill in that execution. So, the process includes a number of practical experiments and exercises. So if you looked in the news, you saw about 3 months ago, basically, a practice that was held in the Sumerian mountains in which the simulation of the making of the ashes of the red heifer was conducted. So what they did was pretty much a practice run at sacrificing this animal. So, if you are up on your red heifers, that it has to be made on the Mount of Olives facing the site of the Holy Temple, or it's invalid, right? And, the Temple Institute and everyone is specifying particular and being very specific that it was just an exercise. It's a part of the exercises that were practiced on how to do it, how to stay in line with Torah requirements. The act was not, they're saying the act wasn't kosher for not just the wrong spot, but the heifer was chosen. The color was red, but it was invalid because the tail was damaged. It had a defect. Now, they had priestly garments on. They wore them. They practiced. It wasn't consecrated. But the purpose of that exercise was to improve the readiness for producing the ashes. The exercise will improve their understanding of the process, the weak points they have to deal with, the proper way to lead the heifer to its destination, stuff like that. But if you go down the rabbit hole, there are theories out there that are claiming that although it's been said that it was a trial and a preparation, some people are saying that it in actuality was the actual ceremony. I'm not going to get into that. You're going to have to draw your own conclusions for that. But they're saying that, on their defense is that anybody that claims otherwise, that it was other than a practice, they're trying to mislead you, and whatever. But there's currently 4 red heifers on the site, which are owned by the head of the Temple Institute, and their status hasn't been determined, but they're monitoring that as we speak. So why is all that important? And like I said, you go down your own rabbit hole with that. Was it practice? Is it the real ceremony? Will we ever know? Here's what they're saying is practice, and we're going by what we hear here. So draw your own conclusions to that. But the red heifer is important because it's needed for that new temple due to the role in the biblical purification rites. So according to the Old Testament, that red heifer is required to be the perfect animal, free from blemish, and never having borne a yoke, right? Its ashes are used to purify the Israelites from uncleanliness, right? Back then it was after contact with a dead body mostly. But the ashes of the red heifer were collected and stored, and they were used by the priest to purify something that was unclean. That ritual was very serious, and those who weren't purified by it were actually cut off from Israel, right? So the red heifer's ashes are considered necessary for purification of the nation of Israel from impurity resulting from proximity to or contact with that dead body, but it's necessary for Jews to ascend to the temple. So now, mind you, some Orthodox Jews and even some Christians, they want a temple rebuilt in Jerusalem, and they want daily animal sacrifices established. But before that can occur, it's believed the ashes of the red heifer would be needed to cleanse the altar. So the Bible does indicate that the third temple of some kind will be erected in the end time. It's going to be used by the abomination of desolation. In 2 Thessalonians 2, you can read that, where Antichrist declares he is God and therefore deserves worship, right? So the burning of the heifer may seem like a mere religious curiosity, but it's actually a gateway to reestablishing temple service. According to biblical law, the ashes of the red heifer are the only means by which somebody ritually defiled by contact can be purified, right? And since all Jews are presumed to be in such a state today, the restoration of temple sacrifice is impossible without red heifer ashes. So in other words, no ashes, no temple, right? So the rebuilding of the third temple in Jerusalem has emerged as one of the most significant prophetic markers of the end times, heralding the rapture of the church and eventually the second coming of Jesus Christ. So recent developments have been unprecedented progress. They're showing the preparation efforts despite ongoing, geopolitical tensions at the Temple Mount. These key milestones include, securing the funding already, successfully breeding the red heifers for purification rituals, creating the exact replica of the Ark of the Covenant, and establishing these comprehensive training programs for the priests and the Levites. So while these while all of this is marking like a remarkable progress, the temple site is still contested, and that remains the critical challenge that could probably trigger significant prophetic events, right? These developments align with the biblical prophecies found in Daniel 9, Matthew 24, requiring careful examination through both biblical discernment and an understanding of the current political dynamics. Right, so let's jump into a little background and progress towards this third temple. And if you look on the news, all throughout that area, the flags of the third temple are flying. There's flags with third temple images on them all throughout the region. There's a push for this. So the Temple Mount in Jerusalem is one of the still most contested pieces of real estate in the world. Right, it's revered as a site of both Solomon's temple and the second temple, which were integral to Israel's worship. Right, and following the destruction of the second temple in AD 70, the Jewish people were left without a central place of worship. Right, so biblical prophecy anticipates the construction of this third temple. The Apostle Paul referred to that temple when describing the man of lawlessness who will desecrate it in 2 Thessalonians. In recent years now, if you watched, these preparations for rebuilding the third temple have reached this unprecedented level, right, marking a profound step towards fulfilling biblical prophecy. And according to Israel National News and the Temple Institute's official documents, the Temple Institute in Jerusalem has made significant progress in fulfilling key requirements, right? That progress is significant as it demonstrates the first concrete steps towards rebuilding a temple since the temple's destruction in 70 AD, right? The Institute has secured substantial funding and successfully recreated numerous temple implements according to biblical specifications, like the menorah, like the altar of incense, like the table of showbread, all the items that are essential for temple worship and were specifically commanded by God in Exodus. In addition to that, the Institute has constructed a modular altar. So let's say that it can be quickly assembled, making it possible to resume sacrificial worship when the circumstances will then permit. Right? So these developments collectively mark this historic milestone in the preparation for the third temple's construction and that role in its end-time events. And if you've been paying attention and listening and watching, those 5 red heifers were transported from Texas to Israel back in 2022. And that was the first qualified red heifers seen in over 2,000 years, right? So big deal, right? So that achievement represents that crucial milestone in third temple preparations, as the ashes of the red heifer are super essential for purifying both the temple site and the priests who have to serve in it. And you can read that back in Numbers 19, right? According to that, what needs to be done. And without that purification ritual, the construction and the operation of the third temple would be considered ritually invalid under their Jewish law, right? So the presence of these qualified heifers removes one of the major obstacles to temple reconstruction. This is potentially you could say, accelerating the timeline for this prophetic fulfillment, right? So how might this development challenge or strengthen our understanding of biblical prophecy fulfillment in these modern times? So if you look at the Temple Institute, further advancing their prep, they've made this replica of the Ark of the Covenant according to the biblical specifications in Exodus, right? And these specifications, they detail the precise measurements, the materials, including acacia wood overlaid with gold, the golden rings for carrying poles. The development of the significance as the Ark of the Covenant represents the very heart of temple worship itself, symbolizing God's presence and his covenant with Israel, right? Its recreation, it signals a major step towards full temple restoration, and it demonstrates the Institute's commitment to precise biblical adherence in preparation for these temple services, right? While we don't know where the original Ark's location, that still remains unknown. This replica is going to serve as an important symbolic and fulfill ritual purpose. So it's not just that; it's all these multiple sources: Israeli News, Messianic Bible News, The Way of Life, the Temple Institute. They've already established comprehensive training programs for qualified priests from verifiable priestly lineages confirmed through DNA testing, right? And these training programs launched way back in 2014, and they encompass theoretical studies of temple law and hands-on workshops. These candidates have to learn essential skills, including the sacrificial offering procedure, the ritual purification methods, the precise ceremonial execution. They're using replicas of temple vessels. They practice maintaining ritual purity, precise service timing, the temple music, the proper use of meticulous recreated priestly garments that follow all these biblical specifications, right? They have already established a fully functioning Sanhedrin or a Jewish high court. That's been reestablished. That development fulfills a key requirement for temple governance and ritual oversight, right? That Sanhedrin reestablishment is a significant milestone in the preps for this third temple. And as the authorized religious body, it's going to oversee temple construction, the decisions. It's going to validate priestly lineages, and it's going to ensure all the preparations and all the operations adhere to this biblical and rabbinical law, right? So what's the challenge right now? The challenge to rebuilding a third temple is the Temple Mount's contested status, right? The site right now is home to the Dome of the Rock and the mosque, which are two of Islam's holiest sites. So while the mount falls under Israeli sovereignty, it's controlled by this Islamic organization, right? Creating this politically volatile situation. And any attempt to alter the status quo is going to risk igniting widespread conflict. I wonder what that would be like, right? So despite these challenges, a lot of people speculate that these geopolitical shifts or a future peace agreement could pave the way for the temple's construction. Hey, where does that come in? A peace agreement, right? Daniel 9 talks about that covenant that's going to be confirmed by Antichrist, which could potentially allow for such developments, right? It could, these current diplomatic efforts or emerging alliances be laying the groundwork for this prophetic event, right? Or could the potential destruction of the Dome of the Rock trigger regional conflicts that the Antichrist is going to resolve through this peace agreement? What role might powerful nations play in shaping the outcome of this timeline? Are there current diplomatic efforts or emerging alliances laying the groundwork for this event? Our current leaders, knowingly or unknowingly, are they setting the stage for the fulfillment of God's word? This all comes down to this timeline, and I hope I'm not going over this too quickly. There's a critical aspect of these developments concerning the timeline of the red heifer sacrifice, right? So according to the Temple Institute guidelines, which is based on Numbers 19, the red heifer has to be sacrificed during a specific window, right? It has to be 3 years old, but it has to be before it turns 4 years old, right? The precise timing requirement aligns with established Jewish traditions. It's going to ensue the ritual's validity, right? So with those red heifers being transported to Jerusalem back in 2022, the window for the ritual converges on 2025. So could this timeline indicate the imminent start of temple worship preparations? And if so, what implications does this hold for the church and the fulfillment of end time prophecy? So that sense of urgency is well founded, right? The Temple Institute's not only completed detailed architectural plans, but also has prefabricated many components of this for rapid assembly. And with our modern construction techniques and extensive prep work done, experts, you can estimate the actual construction of the third temple and see it being completed within months once permission is granted and the green light is on, right? And that aligns with Jesus' warning in Matthew 24. It says, "This is why you are also to be ready, because the Son of Man is coming at an hour you don't expect." And if the temple's construction begins suddenly, will Christians around the world recognize its prophetic significance? And are we prepared for the rapid unfolding of God's plans? So what's the implication for the church and the rapture, right? That potential for sudden and dramatic developments concerning the third temple raises critical questions for Christians. One of the most debated topics among believers is the timing of the rapture. And we're not going to jump too deep into this because that's going to be something for another time. But will the church be taken up before the third temple is completed, or will Christians witness its construction as a final sign of God's prophetic timeline? Just briefly, not to take a side here because that's a debate for another time, Thessalonians 4 promises that the Lord will descend with a shout and the dead in Christ will rise first, followed by those who are alive and remain. And that glorious event known as the rapture could happen at any moment, right? And there's scriptures providing strong evidence that the rapture must precede the tribulation, shielding the church from God's wrath. And, you know, the people that say it's before it say 1 Thessalonians 5, "For God did not appoint us to wrath, but to obtain salvation." And they say it's reinforced in Revelation 3, where Jesus promises to keep his church from the hour of testing that's going to come on the whole world. Right? This two-phase harvest is portrayed in Revelation 14, where the first harvest is conducted by one like the Son of Man seated on a white cloud, representing Christ gathering his church, while the second harvest results in judgment through the great winepress of God's wrath, which 1 Thessalonians describes this dramatic rapture event, while 2 Thessalonians 2 indicates that the restrainer, or the Holy Spirit working through the church, must be removed before the Antichrist is revealed. So that means the church would be removed before the desecration of the temple by the Antichrist, described in Matthew 24. And as we await that blessed hope, which Titus talks about, and our deliverance from the coming wrath that 1 Thessalonians says, what does that mean for our daily life? So are we living in readiness for Christ's return, or have we grown complacent? And how might these events inspire us to greater faithfulness in evangelism? So as we observe these developments, you have to consider whether the accelerating preparations for the third temple indicate we're approaching the fulfillment of these prophecies described in Revelation 11. The construction of such a significant structure would undoubtedly reshape global geopolitics, whatever you want to call it, especially in the Middle East, right? That raises important questions about our spiritual readiness as Christians. So are we truly prepared for the rapture and the tribulation period, you know, the one that Matthew 24 talks about? The church's role is discerning and responding to these developments, and it can't be understated, right? As these events unfold, we must seriously reflect on whether we fully grasp the urgency of Jesus' call to spiritual vigilance, as emphasized in Mark 13. So as the world was going to witness this historic milestone, and the call for Christians to remain grows ever more urgent, right? Jesus warns in Matthew 24, be alert since you don't know the day the Lord is coming. The preparations for the third temple, coupled with those political tensions and the ticking clock of the red heifer's timeline, that remind us that the stage is being set for the fulfillment of end time prophecy. Right? So are we ready to meet the Lord if he came today? This is a time for spiritual preparation, for prayer, for evangelism. Right? You heed the signs, you align your lives with God's word, and you share the hope of the gospel to those around us. The question remains, what time is it now? And, the answer might be closer than we think, but indeed, if we are living in these final moments before unprecedented changes unfold, as believers, our mission is to remain faithful, right? Share the truth, prepare our hearts for the imminent return of Christ. Let us, think about Romans 13. It says, besides this, since you know the time, it is already the hour for you to wake up from sleep, because now our salvation is nearer than when we first believed. So while this public, discourse focuses on political and religious debates surrounding that third temple, there are these significant developments taking place behind the scenes, right? These architectural plans. So there's a team of architects that have prepared detailed plans for the third temple already, honoring the prophecies of Ezekiel and incorporating modern techniques for environmental protection and sustainability, right? These plans are going to be deposited with the Jerusalem municipality once the Temple Mount is cleared of existing structures. Global powers and religious leaders are engaging in these secretive discussions to facilitate this construction of the third temple, right? This development is expected to be set in motion and to bring the arrival of the Antichrist in Armageddon, followed by the second coming of Christ, right? And the Temple Institute and the Temple Mount Faithful Movement, these organizations are actively working towards the rebuilding of the temple. And the Temple Institute is focusing on the preparation of these priestly garments and the utensils. And the Temple Mount Faithful Movement is advocating for the construction of the temple, right? The return of the exiles. The Hebrew prophets foretold the return of Israel's exiles to the promised land. And this process is unfolding right before us, right? The temple's rebuilding is seen as this crucial step in the prophetic sequence. But, although these animal sacrifices are currently not performed in Jerusalem, the Temple Institute notes that 202 out of the 613 commandments in the Torah, they require a temple for their fulfillment. So the Institute's preparing for the eventual, resumption of sacrifices in the third temple. And this third temple is not just a physical structure, but an earthly dwelling place for the divine presence of God, as described in Exodus 25 and 1 Kings 8. This concept is rooted in Jewish tradition and literature. Ezekiel 37 says, then the nations will know that I am the Lord, that I, the Lord, make Israel holy when my sanctuary is among them forever. Amos 9 says, I will bring back my exiled people Israel. They will rebuild the ruined cities and live in them. They will plant vineyards and drink their wine. They will make gardens and eat their fruit. Exodus 25 says, let them construct a sanctuary for me, that I may dwell among them. Ezekiel 43 says, the glory of the Lord entered the temple through the gates facing east. I heard someone speaking to me from inside the temple. He said, Son of man, this is the place of my throne and the place for the soles of my feet. This is where I will live among the Israelis forever. Excuse me. So while this debate surrounding the third temple is continuing, these behind-the-scenes developments demonstrate the significant progress being made towards its construction, right? The return of exiles, the preparations for the sacrifice, the focus on the temple as the earthly dwelling for the divine presence, they all point to the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. And as the world watches, the stage is being set for a dramatic and transformative event in human history, right? So the significant preparations for the rebuilding of the third temple are underway. We talked about securing funding and the breeding of the heifers, breeding those heifers, retraining the priests. There's substantial funding being secured for the rebuilding, right? I want you to dive into that and look at it. The menorah, we talked about that, the altar of incense, the showbread table, the red heifers having this being transported in 2022, and how essential they are for purification rituals required for temple service. The training of there's over 300 men in verified lineage for the priestly line of Aaron that come from Aaron that are undergoing rigorous training to prepare for their roles in the future temple, right? That training includes instruction in animal sacrifices, ritual purification, everything needed for the temple's operation, right? And while this Temple Mount remains a highly contested area, housing these Islamic structures and subject to strict regulations, there's a growing movement among Jewish worshipers to ascend the mount, and the influential voices within Israel are advocating for readiness in both spiritual and practical terms, right? The rebuilding of the temple is seen by many as the fulfillment of biblical prophecy and a significant event in the context of this end time scenario. Right? And like I said, while the physical construction of this temple hasn't begun yet, the groundwork's being laid with all these preparations indicating that serious commitment to the goal. I mean, there's momentum building towards this long anticipated project, you know. But like I said, and to sum it up, with the actual construction, while that hasn't happened yet, the preparations, the developments, everything that's lining up indicate a significant movement toward its eventual realization. And this is the part where we need to take a look at. If you want to spend some time, go down some rabbit holes, just go look at the Temple Institute and see what's going on. Look at things going on around the world. You'll see the flags being flown, you know, on all the equipment and on all the buildings and on all the roads that have an image of the third temple. And there's a move to this. And we all know that the site's contested right now. And we see the anger and the hatred and the tensions mounting between different groups of people around the world. So it's important that as we see this, we know, I mean, we have the Bible here. We know what's coming. We know a temple's needed for the Antichrist to come through and sit. And part of what happens and why that's needed is in Revelation. Open that book. Listen, if you need a Bible, just reach out to me and we'll get one sent to you. If you're interested in sending these Bibles to Africa with me, I need 203 more. Those 203, and they're going straight to Uganda, and they're printed in their own language. And if you're interested in that, if that's on your heart, reach out to us, right? I pray, in this season that you're searching to find Jesus harder and harder. And we know that now, especially, every day is closer to the remainder of prophecy being fulfilled. And we're looking at it. And it says, just like in the days of Noah, people are getting married, they're just going about their daily lives. And that's what's happening here, except it seems like time has sped up on everybody. And we are rocking and rolling through this. Time is flying by. And when you look back, this life is a quick flash, right? It's over. And the decisions you make now, they carry eternal consequence. So you don't want to say, well, I wish I would have done this, or I wish I would have had more time. The time's now. I reach out to God. God, I'm a sinner. I know I can't do this. I believe that you're God. You sent your son Jesus to die in my place. He took the penalty of my sin. You know, I heard this great analogy the other day of the courtroom, and, you know, Satan's called the accuser of the brethren. And this is a courtroom where Satan stands up and just throws accusations upon you and demands your life, you know, because of your sin. They demands God punishes you and destroys you. And we have Jesus there as our defense lawyer, you know, that's demanding his blood. He's demanding freedom in his blood. You know, and he's the advocate for us, and that's what we read is Christ is our priest and our advocate, saying, you know, I've already paid for that sin, you know, and now I demand it's held up, and that's as simple as this is you've got somebody that paid the price for you already, and he wants to know who you are, you know. God, I turn everything over to you. Guide me, teach me. That's it, man. That's it. And Psalm 346 ministry is all about that. This poor man called out, and the Lord heard him and has saved him from all his troubles. Right? It's that simple. You know, and there's nothing that Jesus is going to meet you right where you at. You don't have to quit drinking. You don't have to quit doing anything you're doing right now. Just reach out to God. God will meet you exactly where you are. And he'll help you get out of that spot. You're not weak. You're not damaged. You're not unworthy. There's nothing that you've done that claims it's too far gone for you. Like, stop listening to others tell you that you're no good, or you're not going to amount to anything, or you're worthless, or you've done too many things. Trust God. You know, release it. God's waiting for you, right? And this isn't about earning your way into heaven. You can't do it. You can't be good enough to possibly get there. The only way to heaven and to God the Father is through Jesus Christ, and that's the only way. And it's a gift, and it's freely given, so that none of us can boast. Right? It's not about works, and this is it. We're running out of time, so reach out to God. And if you think it's a crock, then just reach out and say, God, I think I don't believe it's real. Make it real, right? Let me show me you. Right? All right. Next time we're going to talk about the other next thing on the list of topics everybody's writing about. So this is one. We're going to put red heifers to bed. Just know that red heifer sacrifice is needed to purify for the priests, for the temple, and that temple, believe you me, the plans for that are in rapid acceleration. So we're just looking for, you know, when the landscape will be available. So we don't know how that's going to play out yet, but rest assured, it's coming. So be strong, be courageous, don't be afraid, don't be discouraged. You know, the Lord your God is going to be with you wherever you go. Reach out to him. He's waiting to hear from you. That's it. There's nothing else promised in this world. You're not promised to wake up tomorrow. So until I see you next time, thank you, and we'll go over a lot more. If you have anything, reach out to me. Reach out to your friends. Reach out to your family. Thank you, and I will see you next time.